All right, everybody. Sometimes you just gotta get down and do the dirty work. I know they nerfed sunbracers. I know they nerfed well, and we have prismatic now. However, for all my fellow Warlock mains out there, we know that the bread and butter of our class is our solar subclass. And even with the Well of Radiance nerf, we at least got back Radiant skin from D1. It's now called Song of Flame in Destiny 2, and it is absolutely amazing. God tier super. I love it. However, your Well of Radiance is still going to be useful. You're just not invincible in it anymore. And if you have to run Well of Radiance for your fire team, especially on day one, you're going to need a good build for it. Or if you want to run Song of Flame for that damage resistance, you have that option as well. I'm making this video just to give you a very good Sunbracer Warlock build for final shape for day one. Because Salvation's Edge, at least what we've heard, is going to be difficult. And on contest mode, you're going to want to have a build that you're very comfortable with. This is an updated version of our Sunbracer Warlock build that we have done for I think past few seasons now. We do one of these at the top of every season, update it a little bit where it needs to be, go over the artifact mods, and today I have the final shape variant of the Sunbracer build for you. And I know some of my fellow Warlocks out there are like, bro, I'm tired of running solar. I'm tired of running well. Look, man, I feel you, but when you get down to it, sometimes you just got to be a meta slave, especially for the hardest content, and solar Warlock is always going to be meta. So with that being said, let's hop into the build breakdown. All right, now I just want to begin the breakdown by saying that if you have seen any of our other Sunbracer build videos that we've done, we do one for at the top of each season. Generally, the core of the build never changes. However, the artifact does tend to add a nice little bit of flair to the mix. Well, let's go ahead and talk about it. So we'll start, of course, with the most important bit, aka the subclass. When you have to get stuff done and you get down to it, as a Warlock main, our solar subclass is always going to be our bread and butter. If you are any familiar with the infinite ×2 restoration Sunbracer Warlock build, this will come to no surprise to you why we have both Touch of Flame and Heat Rises. I know you're probably going to want to get yourself some Icarus Dash action, but look, man, in content that matters the most, we cannot use Icarus Dash because we have to have Heat Rises. It is an absolute must, as this is going to be how we proc the initial burst of ×2 resto, and this is how we get our melee back. It's very important. And then Touch of Flame is going to allow the solar grenades to have a lot more pop to them, a lot more strength. We all know this. You might be tempted to run Helion, but trust me, do not waste your time with this aspect on this specific build, even though I love this aspect. Now, we'll talk about your super. Of course, your Well of Radiance is always going to be something that you can fall back on, and if your team needs to use one or have one, of course, throw it on. I have on Song of Flame for the time being, as this gives you a great chunk of damage resistance, and it can add for some fun shenanigans with demo rockets. However, if you have to get down to it and run Well of Radiance, it's always there, although it is significantly weaker than it was in previous seasons. Unlike last season, we are not running Ember of Torches. The reason why is because of Radiant Orbs. So we do not need to run Ember of Torches whatsoever anymore. Radiant Orbs all the way. We'll take care of that. That'll be our source of Radiant. So instead, I have Ember of Ashes because in content in which you are under leveled, you're definitely going to want to have Ember of Ashes. In some situations, you could get away with it, but to secure that finger snap, proccing your Sunbracers, put on Ember of Ashes. We know why we have Ember of Empyrean here, to help keep your restoration and your Radiant flowing consistently. Although I do want to mention that I feel like there's a little bit of something off the Fragment nowadays. I don't know if Bungie tweaked it, made it bugged, but sometimes you might find that your resto just falls off. So just be a little bit on the lookout of that, okay? We always have Ember of Singeing on all of the Sunbracer builds that we have done, made videos on. We always have Ember of Singeing. We always have Ember of Searing. This also helps get their melee back. However, I do want to say you could switch it out for something like Ember of Solace if you want to, although I'm a big fan of Ember of Searing anyways. I would say your must-have fragments are definitely Singeing Empyrean, strongly recommendation for Ashes, and then Searing is always going to be very good to practically guarantee that you will never ever not have a charged melee. And the reason why Ember of Singeing is a must-have is because we have to have Phoenix Dive while he rises up in order to proc ×2 restoration. Phoenix Dive has to be your class ability. So that is your subclass. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about the artifact and stuff that you're gonna want to try and prioritize. We already mentioned Radiant Orbs, Shield Crush. This is pretty nice. While we are radiant, our grenades are going to recharge faster. That's kind of useless on a sunbracer build, but they are going to deal increased damage. That is very awesome. And I do have expanding abyss here because this is going to make our edge transit do even more damage. If the target is hit by a typical 15% weakening debuff, this is going to take it to a 25%. And then if you have a tractor debuff or a tether debuff, it's going to take it from a 30 to a 35% debuff, aka use this artifact mod. And also for a little bit of quality of life, you can run press the advantage so you have a little bit of handling, stability, and reload speed upon breaking an enemy shield, which can be very useful in reloading something like your sunshot if you are going to opt into that, which I just have here because never ever go wrong with a sunshot on a solar warlock build. Although some other options would be maybe Red Death this season. I do have the Indebted Kindness here just because this thing is always a great option, and since we don't have access to the solar rocket sidearm at the moment, this is the only one that we can use in the energy slot. Although if I did have that, or if it was able to be accessed by anybody in the game at the moment, we would totally put that in this slot because rocket pistols are so prevalent. I have a rocket sidearm in our kinetic slot because they're just that good. Now, something I do want to mention, since sometimes your Empyrean feels like it's fucks up or like your resto just falls off, if you're in a team setting, which you most likely are, especially if you're doing the day one raid, something useful that you could use as a nice tool to help get that resto back flowing. Even if you have no Phoenix Dive, no heat rises up at the moment, we have what we like to call, in case of emergencies, our utility, no hesitation. Why? Because with Physic, we are able to get ×2 restoration for at least 5 seconds just by healing our allies, and then we can then use Empyrean to extend it. Or you could just keep spamming healing your allies to have that restoration up while you wait for your abilities to come back in the absolute worst case scenario possible. Literally, if somehow you don't have any of your abilities, quickly hot swap to this bad boy to get your ×2 resto flowing. Trust me on this. Then we obviously have an edge transit here because void heavies are cracked out, and this is definitely the best legendary void heavy weapon that you can use to make the most use out of expanding abyss. So that covers the weapons. Now we'll go over the armor mods. These don't matter nearly as much as everything else that we've already mentioned in the breakdown, but some things worth mentioning are stuff to proc your radiant orbs. So I do have a harmonic siphon on for our sunshot to make orbs, and then I do have 2 firepower mods to make a lot of orbs from our solar grenades, and having 2 of them will help decrease the cooldown that firepower has. You only need 1 momentum transfer, so definitely stock up on some firepower mods. Heavy ammo finder, heavy ammo scout to help make heavy for your team, pretty self-explanatory. Your chest piece is going to have whatever resist mods needed for whatever encounter you are in. Now for the boots, since I'm a firm believer in having either a second loadout for damage ready to go or surge boots, I like to have my normal boots when I'm not in a damage phase be committed to scav mods, and generally like a recoup can always just be useful. Even though we are in a ×2 resto build, I just have it there. Just, I mean, it's once freaking energy cost, dude, whatever. And if you are on a double special loadout, you're definitely going to want to have some scavengers for your special weapons, although technically at the moment the harmonic scavenger is useless because our only solar weapon is our sunshot, which has infinite ammo. But if you have a solar heavy, a solar special, this will definitely come in very handy. And I do recommend a powerful attraction mod on your class item so you can pick up orbs from a distance whenever you Phoenix dive, because we are going to be Phoenix diving very often, very consistently. It'll basically feel like whenever you proc your Phoenix dive, you'll also proc Radiant as well, because we'll be picking up the orbs to proc Radiant orbs from powerful attraction. And then I love special finisher, and to always keep us safe when performing a special finny, I have a proximity ward. And let me just say, we all know that they nerf sunbracers in the final shape, but dude, you honestly can't even tell that the nerf is implemented just because we're able to consistently always get our incinerator snap back to proc the sunbracer loop over and over. Now there you have it, fellas. There is the final shape sunbracer build. Still ridiculously powerful, and is still going to work like an absolute beast inside of in-game content. Also, I know in the build breakdown, when I was mentioning the auto rifle, I said if at worst case scenario, even if you don't have heat rises up, I was mainly just referring to like you're in the pits, you ain't got nothing. Although the melee energy you get from heat rises while in the air does still work even if you don't have heat rises proc. I just really wanted to give a shout out to the auto rifle because it is free ×2 resto whenever you heal your allies with, I think it has to be enhanced physic. Just want to clarify that up a little bit. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the build down below in the comments, along with what you're going to be bringing into the Salvation's Edge Day 1 raid. You guys be safe, take care, consider subscribing. I'll see your beautiful faces in the next one. Adios.